In this video, we're having a look at the Polaroid Flip Insta Camera. Hi, I'm Lee. Welcome to the channel. I hope you're having a lovely day. So for those who aren't aware of what this is and how it works, I'm going to assume that I'm just a grumpy old man and everyone's younger than me because it feels like that these days. The Polaroid cameras were a huge, change back in my day, because back in my day we would have cameras that used film, and you'd have a roll of film and you would take the photo and then you would take all the photos on the roll of film, then you'd have to take it to a lab 5 miles in the snow, because back in my day everything was 5 miles away and always snowed, and you'd have to get the photos developed and all that sort of stuff. And then these came out and it was amazing, because basically you get these little cartridges that you pop in here and you take a photo and the photo would instantly come out, instant camera, and within 5-10 minutes the photo would develop itself, which is pretty amazing for those days. Of course, nowadays, we've got cameras in everything, but there is a romance to it, and there's definitely, a certain look and feel to the photos. I'm just having, I'll play some B-roll. I'm having a look at some of the photos that I've taken, and there's a very, I suppose people would say, a vintage look, but it's interesting the marketing that Polaroid is going with this camera, because they're very much marketing it at, the younger crowd, and you take it out to parties and that kind of thing. And it's an interesting strategy, and I'll talk about that later, but let's first talk about what this camera is and how it works and all that kind of stuff. So as the name would suggest, you flip this open and it immediately comes on. Not a lot more to it. I'll talk about the specs in a sec. So basically, you've got, what's really clever about this is you've got 4 lenses. So depending on the distance from your subject, the camera will automatically switch between those 4 lenses and tell you whether, it's close, mid, far, really far, and it'll adjust the focus like that. The really amazing, clever thing with the way this focuses is this thing down here is sonar. I'm not kidding. So it's actually using, one ping only, Vasily. It's using sonar to use the focus. Where that's really advantageous is that sonar works in the dark. So even if it's pitch black, which, probably you're not taking photos in pitch black, but you could take photos in pitch black and it's going to use the autofocus because it's using the sonar. It's not using available light. Speaking of available light, it's got a massive flash on here, so the flash is really good, really powerful. I think the range on the flash is about 15 feet, give or take. And then you've got the shutter button, which is how you actually take your photos. And then on the back here, you've got this display down here on the top. I really like how there's just very simple controls on this. So you've got, there it shows you if the flash is on or off. It shows you how many photos you've got left. You've got this button down here, which will turn the flash on or turn the flash off. So that's just flash on, flash off. This button up here, if you push it once, that will turn on your self timer. So it'll give you a timer, it'll count down. So if you're taking, a group photo or anything like that, push it again and that turns the timer off. If you double press it, that then turns on your double exposure. And what that does is you can take 2 photos and both those photos will be exposed onto a single, bit of film, I suppose, but a little bit of cartridge, a little bit of, photo stuff, and that can give you some really interesting looks. And this has changed to 1 because it's showing you that it's taking the first exposure of your image, and then when you've taken that, it'll switch to 2, and then you take the second exposure of your image, and you double press it to turn it off, double exposure. And then with this button, if you press and hold, that will turn on your exposure compensation. So you can actually expose up by half a stop, or down by half a stop, or put it back to the center exposure. And that is all the buttons and settings that you've got on the camera. The standard cartridges that you get, you can get color, and I've got black and white here as well, so I got a couple of extra cartridges. They've only got 8 shots, and again, we'll get onto that in a moment. The one little bit of, I suppose, slight negativity that I've got with this is the viewfinder, which is, you look and check your photos through here. Now, normally what I do is when I look through, I lift my glasses and I look through viewfinders like this. The thing is, there's no diopter on here, so I can't adjust the lens to fit my pretty poor eyesight. So I do have to use this with my glasses. Not a big deal, but that is something to consider. And then to eject the film, you take it out. A nice bit of thought into this is that it does have a tripod slot on the bottom, so it's got a three-quarters thread, I think it's called. I can never remember what it's called, but yes, you can mount this on a tripod, so that's useful. And then you've got your USB port on the side here to charge the camera. So that is sort of all the specs and how it works. But now let's talk about some of the things you can do with the app, because it does sync with the Polaroid app, and you've actually got some really nice features with the app. So let's have a look at the app now. To access the camera via the app, you turn the camera on just by flipping it open, and then you go into your Polaroid app. Now, before I go into the app settings, I want to show you a really nice thing about this. First of all, they've got loads of really good instructional stuff on their website and inside the app. But so, for example, you can scan your photos. So, this is, you've got your photo there. But one thing you'll notice is that the photo can be quite reflective. So they've actually got instructions here on how to scan it a little bit. They recommend scanning it a little bit from the side. This is not a big deal, but I really like how they show a bit of instruction just to sort of help you get the best out of it. So also, if you go to Polaroid's website and you do it, they've got some really good manuals and instructions on how to use the camera and get the most out of it. I really appreciate a company that has good tutorials on how to use their stuff and how to get the best out of their stuff. So that's I think, a very nice tick in Polaroid's column. So you've got the camera open, you open up the app, you go into the camera section of the app, and you can see here just in the standard you've got auto. So this is all the functions you've got with the buttons on the back of the camera as well. So you can turn your flash on and off, and that will be represented by, it'll show the same settings on the back there, so that's nice and easy. Your self-timer, your double exposure, EV compensation, take a photo, it'll show you the battery life of the camera, it'll show you how many photos you've got left on your roll of film. It's not really a roll, it's on your cartridge of film, I suppose, yeah. You can set your aperture manually, you can set your shutter speed manually. And I mean, I'm going to have to start carrying around a light meter again, which is, it's a bit of a pain, but I really like having to think a bit more about taking my photos. I'll get back into that, more in the description. And then if we go into the manual settings, you can see here, you can set all the manual settings for this. For example, if I change the focus, you can actually see the lens change. It's very quick, but you can see the lens changing there. And one little thing here, so the auto eject button there, what's good about that is, anyway, that's the app, but let me get into that auto eject function thing so I can explain what that is. Something to be aware of is that when you take a photo, so you take a photo, it'll come out of the camera down here in the front, there'll be a little bit of sort of a plastic on top of it. Do not pull that plastic, pull the photo out from without the plastic and let the plastic flip back into the camera. Then what you need to do with the photo, very important, do not shake it. Do not shake it like a Polaroid picture. That song did some damage. If you shake it, that's not good for developing the photo. You do need to give the photo some time to develop. Ideally, you put it in a dark place. Maybe just let it doom scroll Instagram for a while, but I joke. God, that is a terrible joke, but I'm going to leave it in. So put it in a dark place. So for example, just put it in a pocket. The recommendation is, for a few minutes, I say 5 to 10, maybe even 20 minutes if you're not in a hurry to see what the photo looks like, because the longer you leave it in a dark place to develop, also not too hot, not too cold, the longer you leave it in there in the dark place, the more accurate or the better the development's going to be. It can affect the way the photo develops in terms of how that works. Now, the auto eject thing that I mentioned, what's good about that is you can set the photo not to auto eject, but the way the camera is set up by default is you take the photo and the photo will automatically come out. What you can do is set it not to come out automatically. Now, obviously that keeps it in there, but the advantage there is, let's say you're outside and it's freezing cold, that could affect how the photo develops, or it's really boiling hot. So what you do is take the photo, then go inside where it's more temperate, and then take the photo out and eject it like that. So that is, I don't know how often you'd use that feature, but that is a nice feature. So let's now have a talk about how this all works. By the way, I forgot to mention, you get a really nice, hefty strap. I like the strap that it comes with. Let's talk about my actual thoughts about the camera. I think build quality is great. This definitely looks really robust and well built. It's not overly heavy, so you're not going to put it in your pocket, but you could put it in a backpack and carry it, kind of thing. I'm conflicted on a few things. I really like the idea of this. I really like the way that Polaroid has implemented it. I think it's got loads of great features. I love the flip and that noise. I'm a sucker for old stuff, and I just that noise reminds me of my childhood, quite frankly. The sonar, I think, is a very clever idea. And it works really well in terms of focusing. The flash is great. The flash works really well. Something to keep in mind is that this does not have auto exposure. So if you are in a really bright situation or a really dark situation isn't that much of an issue, because as long as what you're taking a photo of is kind of close, the flash is going to do you just fine. But if you're in a really bright situation, you might want to go into the app and set the shutter speed to, you know, really fast shutter speed. So you're compensating for that brighter environment. And I mean, in that case, you might want a light meter. You're not going to carry a light meter. That's not what this is for. But if you were, you know, taking photos seriously, if you're taking photos sort of like at a party and it's a fun sort of situation, I think this is great for that, because, you know, you've got the flash, which is going to work well. You've got the autofocus with the sonar, so even if it's a dark environment, the autofocus is going to work. One little thing with the autofocus is that the autofocus is it doesn't seem to be center focused, so it doesn't focus on the center of the photo. So sometimes if you've got sort of something on the outside of the image that it focuses on instead of the inside of the image, that can affect how things work with the photo. So the focus can sometimes be a little bit off, but generally I've found the focus to be really, really good. The thing that gets me a little bit is the film, and like printers, the film is where they get you. So one cartridge of 8 shots, guess how much one cartridge of 8 shots costs you? By the way, the camera costs $399 Australian, which I think is a reasonable price for the camera. But yeah, so with this film, so if I wanted one, by the way, you need the I-type cartridges. There are different types. You want the I-type. If you want one cartridge of 8 shots, how much do you reckon that's going to cost? I will put a little timer down here. I'll give you about 10-15 seconds to decide, and have a guess how much it costs. If you guessed $30, you were absolutely right. $30 for a single cartridge of 8 shots. Now, I'm not saying it's not worth it, because if that's what it costs them to manufacture it, if that's the price that they've decided to sell it at, that's totally cool. But at more than $2 per photo, you know, again, if you think about it, $2 per photo, is that really a big deal? For some people it will be, for some people it won't be. I don't know. Everyone's going to have their own perspective on the price of 8 photos. For me, it feels a bit not a bit steep. You know what? Here's the thing. It doesn't feel steep to me, but where I think it's unfortunate is I would like to use this camera a lot. I'd like to take tons of photos, but at $30 for 8 photos, I'm not going to use it nearly as much as I want to use it. So that's my perspective. Your perspective may be different, but that's the thing. Other than the cost of the film, I really, really like what Polaroid has done with this camera. I really like the functionality they've built in. I like how simple it is, and yet you've got a couple of, you know, you can go a bit deeper into the settings if you want to. So yeah, overall, I really like this camera. Unfortunately, because of the price of the film, I'm not going to take nearly as many photos as I would like with it, but I can definitely see myself at birthdays and special occasions and things like that. It's really nice, first of all, to take it out. It's a great conversation starter, but it's really nice to have, you know, actual physical photos. There's definitely something to be said for having physical photos and physical I mean, they're not just physical photos, they're physical memories. And I think that's really the key to it. So anywho, I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was useful. If it has been helpful or useful, please like and subscribe. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much for your support, and we'll catch you on the next one. Safe and happy snapping. Polaroid. For those of you who are a fair bit younger than me, which unfortunately is a quickly expanding group of people, you may not be familiar with what a Polaroid camera is. Well, back in the old days, okay, let's try that again. Let's be a bit less cranky old dude. Recording on here this time, because you weren't recording last time and you didn't record any of what you showed, so yeah, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's try that again, and with my mouth open and my brain working. I really wish they'd given me the white one. The white one looks so much cooler, I think. You can definitely take a selfie with it, depending on how long your arms are, I suppose. Yeah. Sonar on a camera, that's cool, I like it. I just hope that, you know, it's, I just hope I pushed record for most of those bits. We'll find out shortly.